I live on my own.
Okay.
Yeah.
And where did you live before?
I lived with some friends not too far from here, like a 10-minute walk away. There were 5 of us in the house. And then before that, I lived on my own in a couple of rented houses. Yeah.
Have they always been around Oxford or Littlemore?
I lived in Abingdon before I lived with my friends down the road for 2 years. And before that, I lived in Oxford, not around Littlemore, sort of on Cowley Road area, for about 3 years. The reason I moved to Abingdon was just purely cost. I couldn't afford to rent in Oxford on my own.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how long have you been living here?
Since the end of April this year, 2023.
Okay.
Wow, that's very recent.
Yes.
And how has that been so far?
Really good, really lovely. So this is a shared ownership house, so I pay, I have a mortgage on 35% of the house and I pay rent on the rest, which makes it affordable. So yeah, it's really nice to live on my own again. It's a good size for me. It's nice to be close to friends. It's nice to have my own space. Yeah.
Okay. Can you please talk me through what a typical day looks like for you?
Yeah. So I mostly work from home. I go into the office once or twice a week, or sometimes I travel a bit for work, depending on what's required. But at the moment, I get up at some point, usually around 9ish, go and make some coffee, go and sit at my desk for a couple of hours, and then I'll just kind of start the day working, and then I'll eventually go and do things like shower and get dressed and stuff. I usually just kind of get started, and then I'll, go and kind of get more ready. So if it's an early morning meeting, the camera doesn't come on because I'm not really awake enough for that yet. It's just kind of work from home, and I sort of take breaks here and there rather than I don't want to sit at my desk, for a solid 8 hours, or whatever. So I'll, work for a bit, and then I'll get up and do something else around the house, like I'll, do some laundry or tidy up a bit, or sometimes I'll just come and sit here and have a break and watch television or something, and then go back to work. And I find that a good way of managing working from home.
Okay.
Because there's a lot of distractions, I suppose, around the house when you are working from home. And I think rather than trying to force myself to sit at the desk all day, I think I'm well, it's okay if I wander off and put some things in the dishwasher and then come back and sit at my desk. It's actually good to get up and move around. They sort of, recommend that you do that anyway. So, and then at some point in the evening, I'll wrap it up and make dinner, watch some TV. I used to go out a lot more, I guess, before the pandemic, and that was much more into my routine. But because I got much more used to being at home by myself during the pandemic, I don't go out as much as I used to, but I still try and go out a couple of times a week to see people. I think I'm much more happy spending time on my own in the house. I've just got much more used to it, really. So now I really enjoy that time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is that similar also during the weekends?
My partner lives in London, so I quite often go and see him in London, or he comes here. I guess I'm more likely to do more social things during the weekend. It's not often that I have a free weekend where I can just relax and recharge at home, but I do enjoy them when I have them.
Okay.
I spent more of my time at home this weekend. I forget what I even did. It was only a couple of days ago. I went out on Saturday night for a few hours, and then yesterday, I was mostly at home, so it was pretty nice.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And do you feel that your routine has changed since you moved into this place? I feel better able to work from home. It was more difficult when I was sharing with friends. I think because there were more people around, so there were more distractions. I'm able to cook for myself more. Sharing in a house with 4 other people meant the fridge was just always crammed full of other people's stuff, and then you're kind of not fighting over kitchen space, but sort of, you're just not always able to get in there and use it. So I ended up
just ordering takeaway quite a lot more often when I lived with more people, because it was just difficult to like plan, I suppose, in the same way. Like sometimes you would all eat together, but often you'd all be doing your own thing, and so I find it's just kind of a bit easier to manage my time and just I guess make better choices when it comes to like how I eat, like how I manage to work and separate out break time with work time, and I think that's a bit easier.
Okay, great. What are some of the challenges that you face when working from home?
So I mean, there are more distractions. So I have games consoles just here and a nice big television, and and sometimes if I'm trying to work on something that's quite taxing and requires a lot of focus, I really want to procrastinate. So I'll think, I'll suddenly decide to, I don't know, have a plant I was meaning to repot, so it's very important that I just go and do that right now. Or just like random stuff that just is absolutely not necessary, but it'll suddenly pop up in my head and I'll go, I should do that, rather than focus on this report that's going to take me 4 hours. So pushing past that and getting on with things, which is why I try and go into the office at least a couple of days a week, because I find it much easier to focus without distractions. Well, without the kind of distractions that come from being at home. But there are different distractions, I suppose, because there are colleagues. So sometimes they'll wander by my desk and ask me a quick question, which is not a quick question, it never is. So it's, there are pros and cons, I guess, to each. But I think, the main one is it's my home, which means there's lots of, entertainment things around, because obviously there would be. So it's trying to ignore those and go, no, you can't do that until you've finished all your work. And you have like an internal voice, which is, your mum going, do your homework, then you can have the nice thing. So,
Okay, that makes sense. And where do you currently eat your meals?
I tend to just sit here on the sofa, and eat in front of the TV. There isn't really the space for a dining table. I've been thinking of getting like a fold-out one for over behind me in that sort of space, but to be honest with you, if I was by myself, I probably would just eat dinner here anyway. Okay. Like if there was somebody over, I might then use a table, but if it's just me, I wouldn't bother.
That's comfortable for you?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So do you feel like you use your home like it was intended for?
I guess. It's kind of difficult to know what people had in mind when they were like planning out what the floor plan would look like. I think I use the space in the bedroom quite well, separating it into like a bed space and an office space, and because there are dividing shelves down the middle, it does feel like 2 separate spaces, which is really nice. Again, like earlier in the beginning of the pandemic, where I was living at the time, I had a desk in my bedroom, and it was like desk and then bed like a couple of feet away, and that was really I think over time that got more difficult, because you just don't have that separation from like psychologically from like where you rest and where you work. And then with the rest of the house, like I think that space is intended to be like a dining area. It's just not really big enough for that. So I don't know, I make the best use of it I can.
Okay. Do you feel your home offers flexibility, like in terms of being able to accommodate furniture in different places?
I don't know how I would set it up any differently than this for it to work. Not for me anyway. Like I do need to have an office space. I guess if I didn't need that, then I could set up my bedroom differently. This room, I think it would be difficult. I mean, I'm just trying to think where else I would put the sofa, and I don't know. So I don't think I could set it up any differently, no.
Okay. And what are you looking for in a home?
Good question. I guess somewhere to relax and, be kind of a sanctuary, like quiet, privacy.
How did you choose this flat, for example?
So this actually used to belong to my cousin. She was also doing the shared ownership thing, and she was in a position where she could now buy a house without doing the shared ownership. So part of it was, honestly, I wanted to live on my own. I wanted to eventually get on the housing ladder, and shared ownership seemed like a good way to do it, because otherwise it wouldn't have been affordable. So this was one of the few options that was affordable, and in Oxford, which was where I wanted to be.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, kind of in terms of affordability, location, were there any other criteria that you had in mind in terms of space?
I certainly needed some space for a desk so that I could work from home, and I guess I would have liked that to be a separate room if possible, but the arrangement I just mentioned with the shelves separating the rooms is a good accommodation for that, I suppose. And then having a place for people to stay would have been nice. This is actually a sofa bed, so people can, this pulls out and people have slept here sometimes, so that's good. Would have been nice to have a bath in the bathroom. I could have one put in, but it's not something that I'm going to sort of push for. Have I answered your question? I'm not sure. Okay.
Is there something you wish you would have known before moving into your flat?
I don't think so. I think I knew everything. Buying from my cousin was helpful because I knew a bit about the neighbours and what it was like living here and stuff like that. So yeah.
Okay. And do you see this home adapting to your future needs?
I think it's probably not somewhere I will live longer than a few years or so. What I'd like to do is use the time to put myself in a better position to do a house not in a shared ownership kind of way. It's like a good stepping stone towards that, because I'm not paying huge rent prices and then being totally unable to save. Like, the fact that I have a mortgage means that I am able to put some money into home ownership, and I'm trying to overpay my mortgage a bit and save. But it also does offer some security that I haven't had before. So I must have lived in about 16 different houses, and I'm 38. So because I had a run of bad luck with landlords. Sometimes they randomly decide they were going to sell, or they wanted to hike the rent an amount of money that I couldn't afford, or I was living with people and somebody else wanted to move and I couldn't find a housemate, so I had to move on. So there was just lots of reasons why I kept having to move. So where I am now, they can't make me leave unless I really can't pay the mortgage or something, and they can't hike the rent some crazy amount because it's a housing association, so there are rules with what we're allowed to do. So having that security is really important to me. So it's in the short to medium term, it's a good place to sort of stay and work towards those, I guess, longer term goals of having a house that I don't part own, and I might eventually share a house with a partner. This is not a big enough house to share with somebody. You could do it if you were an extremely close couple and didn't have a lot of stuff, but I think this just kind of has to be for single ownership, really.
Okay. Other than switching from a flat to a house, are there any other kind of criteria that you have in mind for your future home?
I think enough space to cohabit with my partner if that's what we end up doing. I would like the idea of us having a shared bedroom but separate other rooms that we can use, so we both have our own office space or places to relax and stuff, because I think for me having my sense of having my own space is really important. When I was growing up, I shared a 2-bedroom house with both of my parents and a brother and a sister. So there was 3 of us in one room, which was not very big. And I think, ever since then, I've just really craved my own space and privacy. So I think that's always going to be important to me. And we were in that house until we all moved out. So my sister left when she was 18, I was 16 My brother was 14, like 2 years between us. I moved out when I was 18, and my brother eventually moved out after that. But you know, and that was because my parents couldn't afford anything else, and we were kind of, that was just how it was, you know. So yeah, because of that experience, I definitely have a strong desire for having just a place I can call my own, even if it just ends up being like a room that is my space in a shared house. Yeah.
Do you feel that you have the enough amount of space or the right type of space for all the activities that you want to do at home?
Just about at the moment. I sometimes put a yoga mat down here behind this sofa and do a bit of exercise, but I also wanted to get some furniture to go against that wall, so I would then lose that wall space, which is helpful for like balancing if you're doing sort of yoga or Pilates. But other than that, yeah, I can make it work. It's workable.
Okay.
Yeah.
Other than having kind of your own space, what's something that you like about your home?
I like that. I like that it's quiet here, and it just feels quite calm. I quite like the layout of it. I like the ability to decorate a house because I'm allowed to. So I like the colours of the walls, and I mean a lot of that my cousin did, in fairness, and she said, oh, you might want to redecorate, and I was like, no. She did a really good job with it. So yeah, I like the layout of it, and yeah, there's the opportunity to kind of make it my own and decorate, and you know that I don't. Yeah, the security thing I mentioned, the fact that I can make it my own is really nice.
What about the layout is it that you like?
It's a good question. It's kind of hard to, because yeah, I think even though it's relatively small, it's nice that the areas are kind of defined and separate. So this feels like a separate living room space, separating the like office from the bedroom. Yeah, I don't know. I think even though it's small, it's been quite easy to have to find areas for different things, so it does feel like it has that separation.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what's something that you dislike about it?
What is something that I dislike about it? Not within the house, but this comes with a parking space behind. And I mentioned to you by email, like if you want to park your car there, there's an incredibly narrow bit of space you have to go through, and then the car parking is just really not well thought out at all. Like I have to manoeuvre my car in a really strange way to be able to reverse park into a space so I can get out properly, and even then I have to do a lot of weird manoeuvres to like angle the car properly, because it would be so easy to just scratch up the paintwork on one of those corners, and I really don't want to do that. So I think that's the main thing I don't like about it. Other than that, not really.
Okay. What about kind of like environmental comfort? You mentioned that the noise levels are quite decent. How about, you know, in terms of lighting, ventilation?
So far so good. I haven't lived here long enough to know what it's like in the winter, but in the summer, I guess the other thing is it does seem to retain heat quite a lot, so I think it's the windows over here, like when the sun's shining down on those and the sun comes up from that side, it really heats up the room. So I have a blackout blind in my room and I need to get some for this room as well. But I put a couple of thermometers up around, so it was just kind of working out, like, is it hotter outside than it is inside? If it's cooler outside, I'll open some windows, and otherwise I'm just trying to keep the heat out. And I've noticed that there's quite a bit of draft coming in through the front door. I think that the way the door is in the frame is not very well done. There's like a bit of a gap there, so I need to deal with that at some point in the winter, because I can see quite a lot of cold air is going to be let in that way. It is generally pretty quiet, but if the windows are open, I do have a couple of quite loud neighbours, but I mean that's the kind of thing that would happen anywhere. It's just a roll of the dice really as to what sort of neighbours you get.
Okay, yeah.
It's not the house's fault.
No. And what does housing quality mean to you?
Do you mean like how important it is to me, or
what aspects, or how would you define housing quality?
Okay. I think to some extent, I guess, like the thickness of walls and stuff like that, because I don't really hear neighbours either side, and there's nobody downstairs or above. So that's important. I've lived in places before where the walls are paper thin and you can hear everything, and it's just really frustrating because you don't feel like you actually have as much privacy as you'd like. You're very aware that there are people just there, rather than it just feeling like you're actually, enclosed in your own kind of safe space. And I guess noticing that that like corners haven't been cut in the build quality, because sometimes you see that like there are some finishing bits around the house that I've noticed haven't been done brilliantly. Like there's some finishing tape that goes around some of the joins in the walls, and you can just sort of see it sort of bubbled and hasn't really been applied correctly. So there's little things like that I notice where I'm just like, oh, it's such a shame. I wish they just bothered to to do that a bit better. But otherwise I can't fault like the other things.
Okay. So you mentioned that the space you have is right enough for like one person.
Mm-hmm.
Do you have enough storage?
I do. Yeah, I had to get a bit creative. So the bed is one that it's one of those side opening ottoman beds, so that opens up. So I've got a lot of stuff under there. I have to be a bit creative with some of the storage, and there is a storage cupboard downstairs because there's a flight of stairs that comes up into the house, and then behind those stairs outside there's a lock-up. So that I'm not even really using that at the moment. So there's a fair bit of storage space. My cousin really struggled because she had a lot more stuff than I do. So yeah, when she lived here, there was much more furniture, there was much more stuff cluttered around. So it felt a bit more enclosed because she just had more things. But yeah, for the moment, there's enough. But I've only lived here a few months.
What are some of the changes that you want to do to your flat now that you've moved in and kind of had a few months to live in?
Yeah, there are more bits of furniture that I would like to get. I've been thinking about like the perfect thing for that wall just there, because I'd like something that is not too wide, because I don't want to lose too much of that floor space. But it would be nice to have a cabinet or something just there for extra storage. A place to put like mail and my keys and things like that. What else? Not a huge amount, to be honest. I'm pretty happy. There's always like little knickknacks and things that I think, at some point that would be nice to have, or but like I haven't put pictures up really. I've put that mirror up, but I haven't really decided where pictures are going to go yet. I have a few, but yeah, I just haven't quite worked out where to put them yet.
Okay. And what makes you feel safe at home?
Doors are locked. Oh, I have a Google Nest camera on my doorbell, which I find quite helpful. It's just useful to know that's kind of, I guess, monitoring stuff a little bit, just in terms of safety, because I know that Littlemore is one of the more deprived areas in Oxford, and like I know there's some like drug activities and stuff like that nearby, which, I mean, I kind of don't mind. Like, obviously it's it's not great, but like they don't really impact me, so I just kind of keep to myself. But it's just sort of nice to know that that's there. So if anything were to happen, like there's some, some way of dealing with it. Yeah.
Do you feel safe in the neighborhood then, generally?
Yeah.
And do you feel like you have privacy at home?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, no complaints there.
Okay. What about, so you don't have communal areas kind of in the development. Is that something that you wish you had?
Not especially. It'd be nice if there was a communal garden or something around. There isn't that. I suppose, I mean, I have got a balcony, but I don't really use it because it looks straight out onto other people's houses. It would just feel a bit strange to sit there and like just where everyone can sort of see you. And I might get brave and use it in the future, but you know, I didn't use it in the summer because it just, you know, like if the balcony didn't look out directly onto other people's houses, then I probably would want to put like a chair there and like some plants and stuff, and then I could sit there in the summer, but I think it would just feel a bit strange doing that.
Okay.
Like I was kind of on display out the front of my house rather than, you know.
So you have privacy at home, but not the balcony.
Yeah, not really. I think just because there's just windows like directly opposite, and people walk around that front bit quite a lot, which is, you know, which is nice. But you know, it would, yeah.
Do you know your neighbors?
I have met the two neighbours that way. One of them I have a number and they have mine, so there have been a couple of occasions where I've been away, so I've asked them to put their bins out for me, or they've taken it in packages because they've just been dumped outside. So that's been really good, and I've chatted to somebody as well. He helped me take my bins out once when they were blocked in by a car, so I've sort of waved hello to some other people, but I haven't spoken to them.
Is that something that's important to you?
It's just sort of nice to know who's around, I suppose. Like I don't need to have like a really, you know, I don't need to know everybody intimately or whatever, but you know, it's nice to sort of be aware of who's around. Yeah.
You mentioned that something you like about your flat is that each space is quite kind of its own space. Mm-hmm. What do you think of open plan living?
Kind of depends. Like I like there to be some separation. I really don't like houses where you've got like a kitchen against a wall and like a little strip of of like lino, and then there's suddenly the living room. I can see that some people might enjoy that because, you know, if they're kind of cooking and they're also talking to people and they're like making it more of a activity that other people are kind of part of, then I can kind of see that. But the one thing I don't like about not having, because the kitchen is kind of like through an archway, right, there's not a door, so cooking smells will permeate the whole house. So that's one thing I don't love. But yeah, I don't know, I think I personally prefer to have like some separation from the house, between the different spaces. Yeah, and having a kitchen that was straight onto a living room is something that I really don't like.
Okay.
Yeah.
How do you feel that your home impacts your health and well-being?
Massively. Having my own space is really important. And I noticed when I was living with more people, you know, I noticed like the quality of my diet went downhill because it was difficult to negotiate space in the kitchen and like just storage for food and things like that. Having quiet space to myself is really important because sometimes I do just need to recharge without people around me, and again that's difficult when you're in a shared house. You have to just kind of stay in your room, which is mentally like not amazing because you're just kind of, then you feel a bit, you know, trapped and a bit depressed. And housing security has been a really, really big thing. The number of times I've had to move house over the years has been really difficult. It's incredibly stressful, like suddenly realising you have to find somewhere else to live, not know where you're going to go. And, you know, when you move, you can't just like transplant all your furniture into a new house. Usually there's stuff that doesn't fit, or things you have to replace, or you know, certain IKEA furniture will fall apart if you move it too many times because it's not designed for that. You have to just kind of leave it where it is and then it will last a while, but if you have to keep moving it between houses, it will just fall apart. So it's just expensive and stressful, and yeah, just the lack of security, like not knowing am I going to be able to afford the next house? Like, is it going to be, am I going to have terrible neighbours that I, you know, because I've had once or twice places where I have had real problems with neighbours. Like nice people, but you can hear them through the walls. And I lived next to a couple who were really nice, but they had two very young children who were quite loud, and they'd throw balls against the walls and stuff. And I'd message the parents. I'd be like, I'm really sorry, but and I felt bad every time because they just want to be kids. They're not doing anything wrong. It's not their fault. But you know, it was really difficult sometimes. So yeah, just like having that stability and having a bit more control over my environment is has made a huge difference to my just like physical and mental health.
Okay.
Yeah.
After moving so many times, what is something that you find unique about your flat?
Unique. I mean, it's not really a feature of the house as such, but just the ability to decorate, like I was saying, is something that I've just not been able to do really before. I will tell you what, it was a very exciting day when I first drilled a hole in the wall, because I just haven't been allowed ever. And I was suddenly like, am I going to drill through a wire? Am I going to ruin everything? I was genuinely really scared. I was like, have one of those detector things that you wave over the wall, and I was like, I think it's okay. And I did it, and I felt like such a grown-up just for putting a hole in the wall. Yeah.
Okay. Maybe not necessarily something unique, but over the times of where you've lived, do you feel like this flat is similar or different? I mean, I know that this is a flat that you live alone, but in terms of layout or in terms of, I don't know, housing typology?
I haven't lived, I had lived in a one-bed flat once before. That was a conversion of a house that had been turned into lower and upper flats. That wasn't amazing because it was a house conversion. When people moved around upstairs, it was just the same as being in a house where it sounded like people are upstairs, because they are. So that felt less private because you could just hear people moving around. And the quality of that house wasn't great because, again, it was a rental, so they aren't typically that well looked after, especially if it's a estate agent that looks after it and manages on behalf of the landlord. Because I think if the landlord knew that, you know, there were like damp problems, or, you know, the wallpaper was peeling, or there were just like little problems here and there, they'd probably do more about it. But estate agents are like, it's not falling down, so it's fine. Yeah, so I think, so I hadn't lived in a one-bedroom flat other than that one. I'd lived in a couple of houses. So in Abingdon I had a two-bedroom house and then a three-bedroom flat, because you can just afford more if it's further out of Oxford. So yeah, it's smaller, but the quality is much better, and I'm in a position to do something about it if there are any like little problems with the house. Luckily at the moment there aren't any, because it's a fairly new build compared to some of the places I've lived in.
Have you had any maintenance issues since you moved in?
No. I have someone coming to do the yearly service of the boiler, like in a few weeks, but you know. Oh, I did notice that there were actually woodlice getting in downstairs, near the front door. And again, in the past I would have just put down powder, mentioned it to the landlord, and like just dealt with it as it came up. But now it's my house, I'm like, oh, I need to do something about this. So my dad came over to help me, and we put some metal mesh on the air bricks, so I'm not like, they're still doing their function of being air bricks, I'm not like blocking them up, but just stopping bugs from being able to get through, and I think that will make the difference. So far so good.
So do you feel like your home is affordable? You mentioned in the survey that 30% of your income goes towards mortgage. Do you feel that's affordable for you?
Yeah, so that percentage of my income goes to mortgage, and the same again goes towards rent. So it's actually a bit more than 30% of my income. It's just about manageable. It's roughly what I would have been paying on a 3-bedroom flat to rent in Abingdon. But I do know that it's not going to suddenly shoot up in price. and yeah, I mean, I guess a bit of me is concerned that if anything happened with my job and I wasn't able to be paid as much as I'm currently being paid, then I would struggle. But yeah, at the moment it's affordable.
How do you define affordability?
Being able to pay all the bills and feed myself and still have enough money to do some fun stuff. Like, I mean, I wouldn't, yeah, like, I want to, so I'm planning to go to Australia over Christmas with my partner because that's where he's from. We're going to go see his family. I can't afford to buy a ticket to Australia. It would take me months and months to save up. I still consider my house to be affordable. You know, plane tickets to Australia are really expensive. He's going to help me with that. But yeah, I could eventually pay him back. So I'm not like coming to the end of the month and finding that I'm in debt, or I'm not like struggling to buy food, or really, you know, going, oh no, I can't buy that thing because I can't afford to. Like, I can still afford to do some stuff, but it's not super extravagant, which is fine. Mm-hmm.
How do you define overcrowding?
I think, yeah, I mean, I suppose the idea of overcrowding is usually like multiple people having to share rooms, and that being really difficult for them. I think I've found it difficult when I've shared with multiple people, like when there were 5 of us in the house, although we all had our own bedrooms, so that was fine. It was it was on the edge of acceptable for me because like it was difficult to like get a space in the washing machine because everyone's using it all the time, and like yeah, freezer space was difficult because that was always full. So yeah, it's probably not like overcrowding in the sense like you hear of like families having to like, you know, live in really small spaces. I think I'm more sensitive to it because of my upbringing. Because I think, you know, we were overcrowded in the 2-bedroom house. And it's only with hindsight and as an adult that I've looked at it and gone, actually, I think the council would have had something to say about that. You can't really have, well, you shouldn't really have 3 children growing up in such a small, because our bedroom was maybe the size of this, like, living room space. You know, there were single beds. There was a single bed on one side and then bunk beds on the other side. And there was not much space in the middle. And like it was constantly a mess because we had too much stuff. Like there was nowhere to put things. There was no like defined spaces for anything. So yeah, I'm a little bit more sensitive to overcrowding, I suppose, than some people might be. Yeah.
And not just, you know, people having maybe their own bedroom, but also, as you're saying, also the shared areas,
yeah,
being able to accommodate.
They need to be big enough for everyone to comfortably be able to use them. Because I suppose, yeah, I've seen student accommodation where, you know, yeah, everyone has their own bedroom, but there is no shared, like, communal space. There is no living room because the landlord's turned it into another bedroom, or, you know, or there is a living room, but it's tiny, so only a couple of people can use it at once. And it's difficult anyway because, you know, if you have a lot of people sharing a house and there's one common area, the living room, like if somebody wants to watch a movie and someone else isn't interested, somebody wants to have like a date over or something, and you know, you having to kind of negotiate the shared spaces, that can be a bit difficult. I think it probably depends a lot on the people that are living together and like how well they get on and how good they are at doing stuff together, but I think above a certain number of people, that's when you start to need like a second living room or a second shared space of some kind that you can, so there are options for people to, places for people to be.
If you were to define a decent home standard, what would be some of the criteria you would take into consideration?
For like home building or thick walls. Like not being able to hear like your neighbours would be pretty good. Insulation, so that yeah, you can maintain the temperature. That's more and more important at the moment, given the more extremes that we're having in you know, we've been hot and cold. I think those are the main ones really. And I think just you can just sort of tell when some buildings have been made with like just like cheaper materials, like things have like corners have been cut and save a bit of money here and there, like things not being quite finished off properly. It's just a little bit depressing when you see that, because you're like, oh, it could just be that much nicer if some of the details have been attended to.
Okay. So general, building quality. Okay. And the past 4 days, has it made you more aware of your routine or of your space?
Yeah, definitely. It's made me more aware of, I said to you earlier, how much I sort of dart around the house. So, I mean, sometimes I do just sit here and not really move very much for a while, and then I think, oh, that probably looks not great on the thing, 'cause she's not doing anything. But then when I am sometimes doing something, I kind of, it was kind of two extremes, I thought. Like, sometimes I was just sat here and not really moving from where I was, and then sometimes I was, I guess, a bit more energetic, so I'd be like, watching something on TV and pausing it every so often. So I was like, oh, I'll just go and get this, or I'll just go and get a nail file, or I'll go and, oh, the washing machine's done, I'll go and hang that out, and I'll go and do it. So, yeah, it's funny, you can see on the heat map, sometimes I'm like just in one place, and then sometimes I seem to just be darting around everywhere, so I was quite like, oh, like an animal in a cage. Like, oh, I guess she's active now.
Okay, great. Do you have any questions?
I mean, it's maybe less an interview question. I mean, one of the things I was interested in is you mentioned you bought this place of your cousin.
Mm-hmm.
What's the process for that? Does your cousin get to decide who they sell it to, or?
No, because it's part of the housing association, so they had to offer it like on their website, and I think, I'm just trying to remember how we did it. You're supposed to apply. Well, I did apply, and they kind of judge your application based on like your kind of ties to the area, the kind of accommodation you're looking for, the affordability, things like that. So like, this is relatively close to my work, and there are people I know in the area and stuff like that. And other people could have applied for it as well. I don't think anybody else did. So she just directed me where to apply, which I did. And then, and I think if Peabody didn't find a person within a certain amount of time, then my cousin could put it on the open market and try and find someone that way.
Okay, I see.
Yeah.
But I guess the sort of profit is shared between Peabody and your cousin, or how does that normally
Yeah,
work?
so she owns 35% of the house. That 35% is of the total value, whatever that ends up being. So if the price goes up, her share goes up as well, and it's the same for Peabody. Yeah, it was
Okay.
Catalyst at the time, but they've merged.
Mm.
Yeah.
Okay.